Canada donates military winter gear to Ukraine with a side order of Sidewinder missile rails. That's right, Canada just sent Ukraine winter gear and rocket launchers. And listen, when Canadians send winter gear, that's like Spartans sending spears. When a country that treats minus 30 degrees Celsius weather as light jacket season, when they arm you with clothing, you know it's the good stuff. And they threw in LAU-7A missile rails because, why not? Canada's that neighbor who knocks on your door with muffins and then hands you a Sidewinder launcher just in case. Let's break it down. Hey friends, Wes O'Donnell here, military veteran, defense writer, and lover of musicals.
Rise up when you're living on your knees, you rise up.
Didn't see that coming. And Prime Minister Carney announced a huge defense spending package. And some of that is heading straight into Ukrainians' winter fight. The donation includes $30 million worth of military winter gear, 38 LAU-7A Sidewinder launcher rails, plus AIM-7 components and M113 parts, which we'll save for another video. Now, as an American who lives in West Michigan, let me say this. Canadians treat cold weather the way Texans treat barbecue. It isn't clothing, it's religion. Michigan winters are bad, but Canada looks down from Mount Maple Leaf and says, "Oh, your lake froze. Adorable. Would you like to borrow one of our emergency snow capes?" So when Canada sends winter uniforms to Ukraine, we're not talking about fleece. We're talking about sacred parkas of the North. These are the military equivalents of what Canadian kids wear on their first day of hockey practice. And Ukraine really needs them. Not the kid sizes, but the real ones. Because winter on the front line isn't just uncomfortable, it kills. Sorry, it's getting way too hot in here to keep wearing these coats. One second, we'll edit this part out. Because winter on the front lines isn't just uncomfortable, it kills alertness, it breaks morale, and it makes every task slow. You haven't truly experienced cold like infantry cold. It's on another level of pain. So Canada stepped in like, "Hey buddy, sorry about the whole Russian invasion thing. Here's some gear rated for temperatures where moose freeze mid-stride." And that matters, big time. Let's talk about what Canada actually uses. The Canadian Armed Forces Cold Weather Issue Kit is not normal winter clothing. It is mythology sewn into fabric. Start with the combat parka. This thing looks like it was designed by someone who wrestles polar bears for cardio and wins by submission. It's thick, it's insulated, and it's engineered for temperatures where regular humans start naming their fingers in farewell. When you see a CAF parka in the wild, you don't think outerwear, you think expedition to find the Northwest Passage. Then you have the insulated bib pants, which are so dense and padded, they could probably stop small caliber rounds. These things are the winter equivalent of medieval armor, except lighter and somehow warmer. Most countries issue their troops trousers. Canada issues bulletproof blankets disguised as clothing. Ukrainian soldiers receiving these are going to walk into their trenches feeling like they put on a portable cabin. Next, there are the Arctic mitts. These gloves feel like you borrowed them from a Wookiee, and based on their size, that Wookiee was probably offended you asked for them. These mitts are famously oversized because they're insulated by trapping air and blocking wind. But they also give you the hand dexterity of a forklift. Not great for texting, but perfect for keeping your fingers attached to your body. The white balaclavas deserve their own award. They make you look either like a snow ninja or somebody about to rob a Tim Hortons, depending on the angle and the lighting. But they're incredibly effective at blocking windburn and concealing heat signatures. Plus, every Ukrainian soldier wearing one instantly looks like they were cast in a Canadian remake of Heat. Finally, the boots. These are heavy, insulated, rubber-bottomed monsters forged in a land where penguins fear to tread. These boots don't just keep your feet warm, they threaten the cold. Put a pair of those boots on and you finally understand why Canadians treat minus 30 blizzards like a casual errand. There is no weather alert strong enough to stop a Canadian from going about their day, usually with a hot coffee in one hand and absolutely no fear in their soul. Canadians call this entire outfit running to the store real quick. Ukraine calls it the first winter where our feet aren't plotting mutiny. And that is the point. This kit keeps soldiers warm and alert and mobile, and most importantly, alive. When a soldier is properly insulated, they think clearer, they react faster, and they maintain readiness under conditions that would flatten most armies. Just ask Napoleon. That is combat power packaged in Gore-Tex. And then there are the LAU-7A rocket launcher rails, Canada's spicy donation this winter. For context, these usually go on fighter jets to hold Sidewinder missiles. Canada had extras, and as any good Canadian would do, they shared. Now Ukraine gets 38 of these rails, which is basically like gifting someone a DIY missile platform. In Ukraine, this means options. Mount them on trucks, mount them on boats, mount them on drones, mount them on anything that look like it can hold a Sidewinder without flipping over. Given Ukraine's battlefield creativity, do not be shocked if someone welds one of these to a Mazda Miata. In Ukraine, Sidewinders have been used in improvised surface-to-air rolls before. If anyone can turn a missile rail into a national pastime, it's the same people who invented the Frankenstein. Canada committing billions to hit its NATO 2% target ahead of schedule sends a message. Ukraine matters. Deterrence matters. And Canada wants a real say in the future shape of NATO's defenses. Plus, Canada didn't just send used gear from a dusty locker, it sent equipment that troops actually rely on. Okay, so what can we learn from this? Lesson 1 is simple enough. For any grunt who has ever frozen on a training range, cold kills as surely as artillery. The Russians learned that in 1812 and again in 1941, but apparently they need a refresher course. Warm troops stay alert, they stay mobile, and they stay combat effective. A unit that is freezing is a unit that is slow, brittle, and distracted by the constant reminder that their extremities are considering resignation. Canada's winter gear solves that problem by turning Ukrainian brigades into walking igloos with rifles. The next thing we learn is about the less glamorous but equally essential part of warfare: infrastructure. A launcher rail is not a missile, but without it, no missile leaves the wing, the rail, or the rack. Over its lifetime, one LAU-7A might enable 20, 30, maybe 50 AIM-9 launches. It is the unsung hero bolted to the airframe, the quiet metal backbone behind the whole chain of lethal moments. Rails don't get headlines because they're just metal, but they absolutely decide outcomes. The next lesson we can learn here is my favorite. Canada contributes in the most Canadian way possible, quietly, politely, and somehow with surprisingly high lethality. They underpromise and they overdeliver, and then apologize for being so helpful. You get a country that will hand you a warm parka, a hot coffee, and a Sidewinder launch rail in the same crate. That's wholesome warfare logistics. And finally, Lesson 4 speaks to Ukraine's strength, a doctrine built on modularity, adaptation, and improvisation. Ukraine fights like a startup with artillery, turning whatever it receives into something more valuable. Give them old M113s, and they'll bolt a drone console inside. Give them a launch rail, and they'll build a new kill chain from scratch. Give them winter gear from Canada, and they'll push through weather that shuts down entire Russian sectors. Rails and winter kit feed directly into that mindset. Plug, adapt, deploy, and repeat. So thanks to our Canadian friends for this upcoming amazing donation ahead of the Ukrainian winter. That's it for today, my friends. If you liked this breakdown, hit subscribe. It really is the best free way to support these videos and help me push back against Russian disinformation. If you're Canadian, remember, I live in Michigan. We're basically the Canada starter pack. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.